Peace and blessings, beautiful people. I am Ade Adifowoshe, aka Life Coach. Ade. Hmm. How's everyone doing today? I trust you are well. This is going to be a short broadcast. That's my thought, anyway. Hmm. The theme of this conversation is love is not blind. So, all the stories you've been told about love, which you've allowed yourself to sign up for and accept about love being blind, it's absolutely BS. There's nothing about love that is blind. There's more I want to say. I just want to welcome you. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, however you're feeling. You may not be feeling the love. You may not be feeling loved. You may not be feeling appreciated. You may be feeling alone. You may be feeling depressed. You may be feeling confused. Maybe you're feeling excited. You're feeling delighted, overjoyed, ecstatic, bliss, centered, fulfilled, satisfied, at peace, in harmony, balanced. Whatever you're feeling, we welcome it all. So if you're in the words of Abraham Hicks, if you're on the high flying disc, we welcome that energy to support people who are on the low flying disc. And not that there is anything better when you're high flying and there's something bad or worse about when you're low flying, because when you're in that low flying disc, this is not an Abraham thing. I've never heard them say that. When you're in that low place, that place of negativity, when you're feeling heavy, it helps you get a better perspective of yourself. It invites you to ask deeper questions, even if you're not aware. Because when we're feeling pain, when we're feeling struggle, when we're feeling whatever we're feeling that just doesn't feel good, whether we say it out loud or not, there's always what could be considered a prayer for this to be better, for this to pass. And something greater than you, greater as you, does hear that. Whether you want to call that your higher self, whether you want to call that your inner being, whether you want to call that the angels, whether you want to call it God, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, something greater than you and greater as you hears you. And your thoughts about wanting something to be different actually creates an expansion in your mind, in your heart, in your consciousness, an expansion in this thing that we call God, which is a collective. It's a collective group of all that is, and that includes you. So, as I said, this is going to be a short broadcast and to tell you about an upcoming event that I'm doing this Saturday. And I want to talk about love is not blind. You know, people say love is blind. Love is blind. That's absolutely BS. There is nothing about love that is blind. If you disagree with me, the chat box is open. Share your thoughts. There's nothing blind about love. And because we bought into that idea of love being blind, is why humanity, human beings, you, me, we are going through so much pain. We're getting things are being repeated that we're thinking. People say, I mean, I kind of understand why people say this is 2022. It's not like we had a goal in mind where things should have been better, if you will. But when people say this is 2022, we're repeating some of the things that are happening. We experience the things that are happening because we have bought into the idea that love is blind. There is absolutely nothing blind about love. Love's eyes are wide open. Love is not afraid to deal with your depression. Love is not afraid to deal with white supremacy. Love is not, you can't really, yes, you can't love and bypass. Some people think you use loving and you're bypassing. When you love, you're bypassing. If you're really loving, there is no bypassing in love. To bypass is to be blind. To be blind is to be in fear. So love is never blind, fear is. Fear is the one that looks at another, whether it's in a relationship and you see things that you don't like about your partner, your beloved, your chick on the side, your dude on the side, whatever you want to call it. And you pretend like, well, I love them anyway, but I'm just going to pretend that doesn't happen. I'm just going to pretend I don't know their credit history. I'm just going to pretend that, they've always had great relationship and there's nothing about them that needs to be healed. That's fear. Love invites you and make a way for you to have the conversation about what is uncomfortable. So when you're loving, you're showing up. To grieve is an act of love. When you feel pain for a loved one, it's all in that statement. It's because there is love for the one. There's love for you. So this idea of love being blind, it's time to just release that and let it go. It's time to give ourselves permission to see it differently. The only thing that's blind is fear. Fear lives in blindness. Fear is afraid of fear looks at what's missing, what it thinks is missing. When you're in fear, you're focusing on what you think you don't have. You're blind to the truth. You're blind to love. When you're in fear, you don't want to address the things about yourself that you know is there, but you're just too afraid to go there because you're afraid it's going to take you out. That's fear. Some people call that work shadow work. You can go into your shadow work with fear, but you need somebody who can hold a place of love for you so that you don't get consumed by your own fear because you're misinterpreting the darkness, the unseen, the invisible. Without love, there is no healing. So a love that is blind can't heal. What's love going to heal if it's blind to what needs healing? Just chew on that for a minute. What's love going to heal if it's blind to what needs healing? Whether that healing is in you, your family member, your spouse, your partner, your husband, your wife, whatever, your co-worker. Racial equity and transformation work calls for love, mature love. It takes love to stand in front of a group of police officers to protest. The civil rights, human rights protest, the Black Lives Matters protest, whatever protest it is for women's rights. It takes love to say, I'm going to stand and let you know that not on my watch, this is not happening. Why am I saying all of this? Because the more I do this grief ritual work, the more I listen to my ancestors, the more I listen to my guides, the more I allow myself to allow the invisible to be visible, not just for me, but for the work that I do as well, recognizing that grief work is often looked as heavy. I've did a session one time and someone said, I thought we're just going to be just some heavy grief work and hard to navigate. When you step into the consciousness of love, consciousness of willing, when you're willing to face the thing that you've been afraid to face, that itself gives you back your power. So grieving is an act of love. And unless you grieve what wants to be grieved, you will continue to repeat the trauma. Wherever there is trauma, it's an invitation to grieve it. And you can grieve differently. You can grieve doing your own individual work. You can do it in a collective space. You can do it with a therapist. You can do it in so many ways in nature. There's so much going on right now, which is constant. And what is happening, an awakening is happening and is bringing forth all that wants to be grieved. So whether is your grief is connected to what happened to your family a few years ago, eons ago, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe you lost a job or resigned from a job, maybe your relationship is not exactly where you want it to be. If you're not willing to consciously and intentionally grieve, you set yourself up to keep repeating the pain of that incident. Talked about racial equity and transformation work that a lot of people are doing, DEI, it's a common conversation. There's a video about Sesame Place, of the characters ignoring black children. Now they're saying that they're going to, I don't know if they start to do diversity and inclusion training, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. That's like saying we're going to have police officers and suddenly they misuse their guns and now we're going to train them how to use a gun. Or having a doctor and saying, well, they went to university, now they're operating somebody. There are things that are put in place before you interact with the public. If we don't consciously, intentionally grieve, not only are we creating space for what we've gone through to be repeated, the same thing applies on a collective level. White supremacy is because there's so much that needs to be grieved, but we're not grieving it. The grieving is happening, but we haven't matched it enough. Sometimes we're just looking for somebody to be wrong. We're looking for somebody to be wrong for the loss of a loved one. We're looking for someone to blame. We're getting caught up in guilt and shame. All that is fine, but we must be willing to move through it. We must be willing to feel the fear, feel the shame, feel the guilt, feel the criticism, whatever that you're feeling that's of a negative energy, and be the place for the transformation. What you don't grieve, the stories about you that you don't grieve, they end up being a frozen energetic rock that you gather over the years. You end up putting it in a backpack. You just drop it in there. That's the way it's always going to be. Nobody really cares. You're just putting this frozen rocks, energetic rocks, in the backpack. And you wonder why you're tired, why you're feeling pain, why you're struggling. The answer is really simple for us. It's time to start unpacking and releasing the energetic rocks in the energetic backpacks that we're carrying around, releasing it back to nature, releasing it back to the river, so that we will be transformed. Peace and blessings, my brother. Namaskar, Brother Williams. To grieve is an act of love. And an act of love doesn't always feel good. There's the illusion that you think when you're loving, and when you are acting love, let me put it that way, there is this idea that it must feel good. No, sometimes it doesn't, because your act of love sometimes requires that you say no to somebody you've always said yes to. And there's a part of you that's like rebelling about this new voice. The fact that you find your voice to say no. And it's not going to feel good because you're doing something you're learning. You're doing something you've never done before. It's like trying to write with your left hand. You're changing the pattern. You're dissolving the pattern. So sometimes an act of love doesn't always feel good. If you're clear about what you're doing, saying yes to you. Some people believe if they stay grieving, it's their way of being connected to a loved one, to a husband, to a wife, to a daughter, to a grandmother. No, actually, you grieve and grieve it. Your how do I say this? Your attachment to feeling sorrow as a way of connecting actually disconnects you from the blessing and this new relationship that you have with a loved one who is not in a physical body. It's okay to feel the sorrow. It's okay to feel the pain. It's okay to feel that sense of loss. What do I do now? I don't know what to do. But don't stay there. Find someplace, someone, somehow, and grieve and release the sorrow. When you release the sorrow, oh, you open your soul to a deeper connection with your loved one. And it's not just about people, it's about anything. Even this is a pet. This is part of what drives me to do this work, the grief ritual that I do on a monthly basis. Um, if you're interested in releasing the energetic rocks that you put in the energetic backpack, it's causing you to just feel like, I don't have the stamina, the energy to keep moving forward. If you're ready, if you're hearing the call, if you think you're hearing a call, go to bit.ly/ancestral healing 1. bit.ly ancestral healing, the number 1. This Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern, sign up. And I'm telling you, the minute you say yes, stuff will start to come up. You start to see things differently. You make room. You're clearing out the dead, I guess. What is dead? Energy that is dead that needs to be released. You can't do, let me say it this way. You will be more effective in whatever work you're doing. You'll be more effective in your relationship when you incorporate grieving as part of your spiritual practice. Because when you grieve, you're allowing the old to die. It's not just an affirmation, I release the past. Oh, it's about forgiveness. It's about letting go. It's about allowing yourself to be in the space of what happened without losing yourself, without going too deep, and just recognizing what was done to you, giving space for what you feel, even while you're pissed, and say, I'm willing to let this go for my greater good. I refuse to be held hostage by somebody else's forgetfulness. I refuse to be held hostage by a trauma that happened in the past. I am living now. I am here now. I am present now. I forgive, I release, and let go. And every time that I come back, find myself thinking of the past and judging myself about the past, I just bring myself back to the present moment. I do my grief work. bit.ly/ancestral healing 1. That's number 1. Go there, register. Let's grieve together collectively. We all have something to grieve. We're grieving the ending of an old world. We're grieving the misabuse of power. Love is not blind. Fear is. Fear is so blind that will continue to bump against your bruise. It will continue to bump against your trauma. Love's eyes are wide open, and it will support you on your healing process. Nice to see you, Mohammed. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. Okay, I'm feeling led to share this. When you grieve, you get to connect with your ancestors. Look at all those people. See, I don't know if I can pause it actually. I can't pause it. Maybe I can. Let me see. No, I can't pause it. You can pause it on your end, especially on replay. That's just going back 12 generations, and look at all the people that came together. All those people that came together. You go to 12 generation, you had 4,096 people come together for you to be alive. You're connected to them. They're connected to you. Your ancestors are living as you. And you are the life of your ancestors. So by default, you represent your ancestors. This work, this grief work, in the other session that I do, What's in the Name, it's about representing your ancestors. Representing your ancestors is a conscious and intentional way of being in the world. It's time for us to heal and stop complaining and stop giving power to people who have no power and start claiming back our power. Once again, I love you. Peace and blessings. Thank you for tuning in. bit.ly/ancestral healing number 1. Hopefully, I see you on Saturday. Peace and blessings.